Alliance party. Atieno, you've been hearing about this, especially with the Kajedo Central, I guess, bringing this discussion to fore for them, but arguing that it's a good way to go in as far as 2017 is concerned, to prepare and set house in order. But you've seen others like the Isaac Ruto, the Governor's Council chair, coming out to say they were not consulted. It has not been a process that has had everybody involved. You've also had the other affiliate parties come out to say we're not going to fold for JAP. And also leaders claiming that Jubilee is going to be around for 15 years, that it's 2 terms for President Kenyatta, the DP then takes over. Your thoughts in as far as Jubilee and their politics so far is concerned?
Very awkward for me to be speaking. Not I won't speak for Jubilee, but I think I'll speak as a Kenyan who's observing. And I think what strikes me is just, it's not illuminating, but not surprising. I mean, I think that this speaks to the sort of politics that we're being treated to now. So the idea of coalescing, of alliances is not new. I think that this is how politicians have decided to conceive of capturing state power. So all of this, I think, has to be understood in a sense to which, you know, the people involved perceive that this is how they can either capture or cling to power. You know, the idea that, you know, we have a set future, you know, it's quite ridiculous, I think. But, you know, this country is being told, for instance, that there are people who have a plan and, you know, we're kind of sorted until I don't know which year it is that they invoke. And I think that as a voter, I really should, like, I think I wish we were more of us speaking and saying, but why is it you take so much for granted? And I think that the lack of, you know, visionary leadership, the lack of, you know, kind of things that people can look forward to should be a wake-up call to the rest of us Kenyans. Nothing stops people from forming a real political party. I think we're squandering the space that was created through struggles to actually create parties as institutions that can mobilize, that can propose ideas that take this country forward. I think what we're treated to as so base that sometimes, like, I just want to switch off. But I want to switch off but also have an alternative, because the fear is that you switch off but then this is it. This is it. So I think the challenge as a citizen, as a voter who is not stuck in the middle of all this, is to say, but where is that illuminating alternative? Where is that political party that I can sign up to and say, this makes sense to me as a basis for which to organize our politics? It really just doesn't exist. So I watch it. It's almost hilarious if it wasn't sad that, you know, this is the governing coalition, and that, you know, I should sit pretty as a Kenyan and know that, you know, up till 2022, the deal for leadership for this country is already predetermined. I think it's a very scary and undermines democracy.
Also which, you know, it's also the electorate, because up until that 2022, it's up to the Kenyan people. So other than the leadership itself, the Kenyan people must take responsibility.
And that's my point. What is it that we do when we hear these sorts of ideas? What is it that we can do to really, in a meaningful way, challenge it? And it happens sometimes, perhaps we don't consolidate it. I mean, what is happening with code and the, you know, the discussions around the Homa Bay Senate seat are appalling. You know, I don't want to imagine, you know, that this is what the alternative looks like. It's unacceptable. So both sides, that's why I'm saying nothing is illuminating. And I'm dying for that alternative that I can sign up to and say, this presents me with an interesting agenda for how to move this country forward. I certainly don't see it yet. But it's not, I mean, the next election is still some ways to go. So it is possible that as we speak, and that's why those of us who want the space to speak, to dissent, to be critical, to propose alternate ideas, want that space, because within that space, perhaps something will emerge. And things have emerged in this country before. It's not a foregone conclusion, and I think that Jubilee Alliance, or whatever it's called, or code, when it becomes a party, they should know that there are people who are not satisfied. This is not good enough, and it is possible to create something else that takes us where it is that Kenya deserves to be.
Whether in Gado's satirical piece, I think it was yesterday, there was a cockerel standing with the words KANU at the bottom, and then with the merging of Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, it's covered up. And then they say Adabracadabra, and then it's unveiled. JAP, of course, now KANU. Is this KANU back?
Maybe apart from Hassan Omar and Mr. Weda here, the rest of the leadership is basically KANU. Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Wetangula. In fact, William Ruto, President Uhuru Kenyatta, all these people. How can so if you in that context, if you talk about KANU ruling for 100 years, that prediction has come true. It will come true until Hassan Omar will have to come out of those KANU people and then set up, and then we follow him for president. Then we say, now we have defeated KANU. That is a fact. But I understand you are looking for some form of utopia. Court is bad, Jubilee is bad, all these things. Let me tell you this. In developed democracies that we have seen, there's always two parties and a third fringe party. Kenya went two-party 2002. There was NAC and there was KANU as the main parties. And then Nyachae's Ford Kenya, Ford People, was a fringe party. Later on, there was PNU, and there was ODM. This time, it was Jubilee and CORD. What they are doing is the basics, because eventually we will have to evolve to a two-party system and a fringe party. These worries that they have, that we fought for all these things, we need all these parties. And for now, my prayer would be that our parties graduate from individuals. For instance, where we are today, our party, the CORD party, the party is Raila Odinga. You get it. Luckily, on the Jubilee side, we have two parties. We have the president and the deputy. They have a following. But on the other side, it is basically Raila Odinga. So even if Raila Odinga joined us in Jubilee Alliance party, the CORD brigade, including my friend, will come and actually will be together. So let us evolve from individuals to now institutions. That again will come after 2, 3, 4 elections. Okay. But when we talk about Jubilee ruling for another 15 years, in a game, you know, politics is a game fast before it becomes war. You must send to the other side. You must try to dissuade them. You must try to kill their spirit by telling them, we are here 100 years. If they believe it, hallelujah. If they don't believe it, even if they don't believe it, they reorganize themselves and they stop you. So don't worry. But we intend to be there long enough.
Let me say something. For you to be able to crystallize real change, you have to live in that utopia and that ideal. Trust me, it's the most what is the most ideal media house called Standard Group? It leads you to a certain vision. When you just do the basics, that you think it's just about anchoring, and just thinking about it's just about relay so that you can have time for adverts to make money for the group, you lose it. What Obet is saying here, Tieno, is having an ideal vision for nationhood, for party politics. Who I can tell you for a fact, if anybody else is afraid to say it within the Jubilee coalition, we are some of those who are raising serious reservations about what is happening internally. As to represent an alternative, you almost have to be the metaphorical Caesar's wife. You have to literally present that you have the credibility, the democracy.
Internally?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I tell my colleagues, parliamentary groups, structures of parties, and the coalition are theaters for this dissent. You know, you don't have to go and say now you're working with the government because you don't agree. And I sometimes have continued, as much as I believe in party discipline, because the Political Parties Act is there to manage, to particularly protect the opposition. We saw what happened in 1992, 1997. You decimate the opposition when you allow this, you know, laissez-faire crossing over of the aisle without necessarily seeking fresh electoral mandate. But to constantly remind people of that they will be ejected from the party is the language particularly some of my colleagues now need to stop. We will eject you from the party if you cross the ideals of the party. But if you're saying that you think that what happened in Homa Bay does not match up to your expectations, I think it is within the accurate framework of distance in terms of outrage within democratic frameworks. Okay. So that said and done, I think I personally believe that all this, if parties were built on ideals, in fact, that's what we did to do in WIPA and even by extension the CORD coalition. We need to rebrand. I think that thing of everybody was in KANU is KANU does not fly. There was a point in time, even my mother, my father, everybody, my grandmother was forced to take a KANU whatever, that Baba thing when we were a one-party state. People were there through coercion, not free will. The democratic space now literally redefined the spaces that we finally came to acquire. So I think it's very simplistic to just say everybody was in Kanu. He's a Christian at a high-ranking member of a church. You know, there's an issue of redemption. You can go to the altar and you'll be forgiven about everything that you have done, and you now believe every other sin that you committed before your redemption is now a bygone. So I think we have to also believe that in politics, people can fluctuate to the right position.